I think to both, I will say let sense prevail. I think we all educated and we all seen it. If we suddenly see that the tariffs will bring the world to a better place, I think that's at least a new theory to many of us. I think for all of us, immediately you either have taxes or tariffs on the goods we are buying ourselves. That creates inflation. I don't think the world needs excessive inflation. Whether you then call that as a consequence of a trade war, but let's see that. I mean, as I said, it sits in the few hands of very few people if that escalate. And I think my point will always be conflicts can happen, but you also need to be sure there's somebody to de-escalate.
Henrik, we've got a previous template of this, albeit a more uncoordinated template from Trump 45 as opposed to Trump 47, Trump Mark II now. Whilst he obviously was not in favour of renewable initiatives on the last presidency, the states moved ahead. Companies moved ahead. A lot of the US moved ahead. We know that as well. Is that going to happen this time round, or is the lead from the federal government, from the administration, just overwhelmingly negative, and that's going to affect the whole of the proposition for you and others in the States?
And the answer there is, don't think so, because if you look at it, we take Vestas as an example. We got 45 gigawatts installed in the US already. That's a third of the installment of wind in the US. That's equal to somewhere around 37 million households. So whatever you see there, that's a part of what was the, I call it affordable, very good electricity supply and green supply in the US. And you can read it differently. And of course, most of you have read it negatively in saying he declares an energy emergency, and you see it as a negative. I see it as well in this energy transition. We need a lot more
Henrik,
of everything.
That's not true. What we're doing is we're responding to a man who says we're not going to build any more windmills and we're going to drill, baby, drill. Can I? Oh, do you want to respond to that? Because I've just...
Yeah, no, but as I said here, and the first executive order is that he is putting a stop on some of the leases on federal land, which of course he can do. And on the other hand, you also know that the private land that sits on the states and other stuff is very much in the process.
Which is the point we're making. Is
exactly.
Now, the other side of the coin, which actually I think you're even more animated about, in fact, definitely, is what are we doing over here? And I've had this. We've had the same conversation with you and everyone else for probably about 4 years now. Yeah. Rip up the regulation. Let's have smart regulation, not no regulation, smart regulation. Yes. They're all talking a great book. We've spoken to all kinds of commissioners out here as well. Are they actually going to do rather than talk this time?
Well, you followed us. We announced something in Ukraine yesterday. Biggest investment since the war broke out in February 22. And I think you're right. There's when you get that many people that are used to have access to that many medias together, then there is a lot of talk. And to some extent, you could wish for a bit more actions on it. But I think depending on what you fly into Davos with and what you come out of Davos with, we are here to do some of those. I think you further in the previous years said, are you here to do deals? Yes, we are, because that's actually what we are about. And when you're able to build a small million households, new capacity of energy in Ukraine in a, I call it war times, but also preparing for recovery times, that sets a statement.
Can I ask you about the macro backdrop that you're operating in? Because one of your big rivals has had some impairments, and what was cited this week was the financing costs in the United States. I mean, we've all been watching interest rates starting to retreat, even though there's been a few moments for the bond market. But what does that macro backdrop look like for you? Are financing costs still too high for green transition?
I think this is a price point discussion for renewable energy. If you sit here and wish that it becomes for free, then, as I said yesterday, I hold my ears and I watched my eyes and closed them and said, never. I mean, energy should not become free because at that point in time we don't appreciate the value it actually adds to us as society and all of that. So in the energy transition, there will be some of those bumps. The world has never done a transition of this magnitude without hitting a couple of bumps on the road, and that's what you are experiencing. Then I think it's very company specific, super company specific. And as I learned one thing very early in life and business: don't comment on anyone else's P&L.
So green momentum is intact, is what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. And you got a temperature check on 2024. Unfortunately, we have passed the 1.5 degrees, with everyone promised that we wouldn't do. So now we're at 1.6. Do you know what? The energy transition continues. It continues at pace if you look across the globe, and then somebody will maybe take a bit slower pace for a period of time. But take Europe, it's actually happening. And you've spoken to the German, both Chancellor, and you're speaking to your cookies later on today. Great country that sets an example for the rest of Europe. Now there's probably a couple of countries missing to follow it.